Welcome to part 3 of our 3-part ransomware series. If you are still with me, I thank you. I imagine that you have a lot of CLE hours to compile at the last minute, or you have a keen interest in ransomware, or some other reason, I guess. But whatever the reason is, I'm happy that you are still listening to this presentation. Now, you may recall in part 1, we discussed ransomware in general, what it is, the types of ransomware that are out there. And then we talked about generally the response process for a ransomware attack, the various stages to respond to the attack. And those stages focus primarily on getting the organization that's been attacked back up and operational, and minimizing the impact of the ransomware attack on the organization. And when we talk about minimizing impact, we focused in part on minimizing damage to customer relationships, minimizing damage to employee relationships. And of course, we talked a little bit about legal considerations to make sure that the attacked organization complies with any pending legal obligations, obviously, to minimize legal liability stemming from the attack. And in part 2 of this series, we talked a lot about messaging, and messaging in the context of informing important people impacted by the attack, whether those people were employees, customers, third parties vendors that you do business with. And we talked about when to notify those individuals or inform them of the attack, what to say, what not to say, and really whether to notify those individuals or interested third parties at all. We also talked about reporting an attack to the FBI. We talked about the legal notification process at a very high level, and really we talked about how involved that process is, because one of the areas where there's a misconception often in a ransomware response is we have to notify on day one. And I think we talked in some detail about why that is generally not a feasible approach. And then finally, we concluded part 2 with a discussion about the threat actor negotiations, some strategy, some common objections to reaching out to threat actors and ways to overcome those objections, because we talked in detail about why it is important to reach out to the threat actor because of the many benefits that the organization can obtain from doing so. And so really parts 1 and 2 had a stronger focus on the attack itself and responding to the attack itself. And now part 3 is going to focus more so on the aftermath and how an organization can get to a position where they were pre-attack status, but ultimately in a position where they're better off if there is another attack. And so we're going to talk really about 4 things today. One, we're going to talk about restoring network connections with customers. 2, we are going to talk about third-party contract management. 3, we're going to talk about internal data management. And 4, we're going to talk about just protecting your company in general going forward with in response to a ransomware attack. And so one of the things it's very important, of course, is there is no foolproof way to protect a company from a ransom event or a ransomware attack from occurring. But there are methods that a company can employ that will help reduce the likelihood of being attacked, but B, the impact of the attack. And we'll talk more about some of those procedures, but when we talk about those procedures, we're not going to talk very much on a technical side. We're going to focus more on a conceptual side of things that can be done and frankly should be done no matter what organization you're in, because these are very important measures that really any organization can take and should take. So we'll talk about that as well.